Hey guys, welcome back to the Tunnel Portal Latex Mold Project. We're going to start out with finishing up, moving on to part 2 and then part 3. Part 2 is very simple. It's just like part 1. It's like a rinse and repeat. We're just going to add another layer of latex and then let that harden up and then move over to part 3. The good thing is now that we've got the first layer of latex already set and already hard, this time when you go over it with part 2, you still want to do a thin coat, but you don't have to be as cautious as you were in part 1, because now instead of working on top of the plaster, you're working on top of a coat of latex. So you're not going to damage the mold at all. I wouldn't be super rough, but you don't have to be so cautious and picky with your brush strokes. So I'm going to pan you down real quick and we'll breeze through step 2 and pick right up at step 3. All right, guys, we're going to let that dry. Should hopefully only take a couple hours, and then we'll get started on step 3. And then hopefully after that, step 4, which is the final coat, and then casting it in plaster. So we're almost there. Be right back. All right, everybody. So step 2 has all dried. I'm not sure if you can see this clearly, but you'll notice the cast part has like a yellowish tint to it, which is normal. It's supposed to. It's not going to be white anymore, at least not while it's still attached to the latex. But the latex does change color, gives you that little yellowish tint. If you notice in the previous step, right at the end, I kind of slowed down the video and I showed you that I put a couple extra just dabs of latex on all of the points of the piece, and it was just to give it a little more rigidity, because you'll see when we go to pop this thing out of the mold, we're going to be pulling and stretching at the latex, and you don't want anything that has a corner to tear. That brings us right into step 3. For step 3, what we're going to need is obviously our latex, a pair of scissors, and some medical gauze. Also, you can use a larger paintbrush at this point, because we're going to put this on really thick. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a piece of your gauze. Now, this is the webbing kind of gauze. This is like the old school kind of thing that you would wrap a wound in, or like a splint or something. So what you want to do is you want to tear this apart and get it down so it's really thin. Sometimes when you buy this in the pack, it comes in like 2 layers. Stretch it out, give yourself 1 layer. It should be fairly see-through. And then all you're going to do is cut this down to length on your on your part. And you want to make sure that you leave enough room to get all around it. So you want to do the sides, the top, pretty much every piece. I'm just going to trim a piece off here with the scissors. Good. And what I found that was really, really strange, not so much strange, when you touch the latex, it has a slight sticky feeling to it, but it's not like it's actually like sticking to your hand. But when you attach the gauze to this stuff, it sticks to it pretty well. I mean, you're able to form this around, and it just kind of hangs there. So you want to make sure that you get this in all of the little crevices. This stuff is actually just going to work as like reinforcement to the latex mold. So if you think about it, it's almost like rebar in concrete kind of thing. I'm just going to keep going here and cut myself another piece. Roughly about that size. And here's what I was talking about, having 2 pieces. This stuff is layered on top of each other, so separate that out. Just like that. And if you've ever put cobwebs on decorations at Halloween time, this stuff kind of reminds me of that. You can kind of stretch this and mold this in a couple different ways. And you just want to make sure you press it in there. Like I said, get all the little nooks and crannies. That piece actually worked out pretty well. Looks good. Alright, not sure if you can tell, but I missed a small piece right in there, so I'm actually just going to take one of these scraps. Get a small piece from it. Just kind of tuck that in there. Doesn't matter if you have overlapping pieces. Again, this is just for strength for later. And then this piece here. We're going to tack on there. Looks like I'm missing a small piece there. It's not too big. All right, that should just about do it. Now, another thing that I learned from the first mold, again, we're going to be pulling at this thing to get it out, and much like I put the extra latex on the points, I think it would probably be a good idea also just to take a couple of these pieces here and these I'm going to leave as double layered. I think I need a better pair of scissors. Alright. These I'm going to leave, and I'm just going to patch them right on the corner just to give some extra protection for when we do rip at this thing. Look at that, one short. Not a problem, we got plenty of it. All right, and we are done with the gauze. Done with our scissors. Now it's latex time. Now this time when you put the latex on, you want to be careful. You're going to be putting a lot, because not only do you have to put a layer of latex, but it also has to get in between the gauze and cover the gauze. So what I did the last time is I just poured this on gently in small areas and then kind of spread it out with the brush. But I did notice that you have to be careful, especially when using the brush. You can move your gauze out of place, so you want to make sure that you don't do that. So I'm going to try it in an area where I don't have a whole lot of creases. And you can see it starts to spread on its own, and I'm basically I'm pushing this down into the mold, which is actually spreading the latex for me. So I'm not actually using brush strokes. I'm just kind of pushing the latex around by force. Just want to make sure that you get a good covering on everything. Everything should appear damp. quite good. Make sure we get our sides. I'm just going to switch back to my smaller brush real quick because big brush is just pulling too much. It's almost like basting the turkey at Thanksgiving. You just want to give it a nice, good coat. Yeah, that was that extra piece. Now this coat, because it's so thick, it's going to take a good long while to set up and dry. So I'm actually going to leave this overnight. That way. Sorry for my reach. This latex, you'll notice also as you work with it, being on such a small brush, or even the larger brush, it does tend to dry a little quicker. So you'll be pulling off strands of latex as it dries. Also, when it gets on your hand, you'll get these little stringy thingies. That's a technical term, stringy thingies. Almost there, guys. Now we are going to do one more coat of latex on here as stage 4 before we do a casting with the plaster. So you definitely want to try and get everything covered in this coat, meaning the gauze. But again, if you don't, we're going to do it again one more time. pretty sure there's a crown or a brick or something that I didn't get watered down. All right, we're at the home stretch. Let's give it the once over and just see if there's anything that you might have missed. Okay, looks good to me. And by tomorrow it should be a nice stiff piece of mess. You're going to really see the color, the yellow color, come out tomorrow with all that latex that's now poured on top of that. So tomorrow we're going to do one real thin coat as step 4, which hopefully should dry fairly quickly. And then within an hour or two, I think we should be able to button up the sides with some more styrene and then throw some plaster together and get a cast. All right, so tomorrow, step 4 and 5. Join me then, rail riders, and we'll ride these rails together. See ya.